Arthur Vance didn't live in a house. He lived in a memory. His property in the hills of Portland, Oregon, was a time capsule of 1978. The paint was a sensible beige. The lawn was mowed every Thursday at 9 a.m. sharp. And the backyard was dominated by the General. The General was a black walnut tree, Juglans nigra. It was older than the state of Oregon itself. Its canopy was a massive green cathedral that spanned 80 feet wide. In the summer, the temperature under the General was 10 degrees cooler than the rest of the neighborhood. For Arthur, the tree wasn't just wood. It was where he had proposed to his wife Eleanor. It was where Eleanor had sat in her wheelchair during her final months, watching the light filter through the leaves. "It's the lungs of the house, Artie," she used to say. "Promise me you'll protect it." "I promise, Elle," he had whispered. Now Arthur was 72. He was a retired structural engineer who saw the world in load-bearing walls and stress fractures. He was quiet, meticulous, and invisible to the modern world. Until Brad Sterling bought the house next door. Brad Sterling, 35, didn't buy homes to live in them. He bought them to optimize them. He was the CEO of Prestige Living, LLC. He wore tight suits, drove a white G-Wagon that took up 2 parking spots, and spoke in buzzwords like ROI, synergy, and curb appeal. He bought the charming 1920s bungalow next to Arthur's, bulldozed it in a week, and started building a modern farmhouse box. All glass, black metal, and zero soul. The conflict began on a Tuesday. Arthur was pruning his hydrangeas when a drone buzzed over his head. He looked up to see Brad controlling it from the other side of the fence. "Yo, Pops!" Brad shouted. He wasn't wearing a shirt, just gym shorts and AirPods. Arthur stood up slowly. "My name is Arthur." "Right, Arthur. Listen, I'm doing a solar study for the infinity pool I'm putting in. Bad news, your tree? It's a disaster. It throws shade right across my pool deck from 2 p.m. to sunset. That's prime tanning hours." "That tree," Arthur said, his voice steady, "is a black walnut. It provides shade. That is its job." "It's a nuisance." Brad waved his hand dismissively. "Leaves, sap, walnuts dropping. It's messy. Plus, it overhangs the property line by about 18 inches. I need you to take it down. I'll even split the cost with you. 50-50. I know tree removal is pricey for folks on a fixed income." Arthur adjusted his glasses. "Young man, under Oregon law, I am required to trim the branches that cross the property line. I will do that, but the trunk is on my land. The tree stays. It is not for sale. It is not for negotiation." Brad laughed. It was a cold, metallic sound. "Everything is for sale, Arthur. You'll see. I don't let overgrown weeds hurt my property value." Arthur hired a certified arborist the next day. They trimmed exactly to the property line, not an inch more. Arthur thought the law protected him. He was wrong. The law only protects you if the other person cares about the law. Arthur went on his annual fishing trip to the Columbia River Gorge in late September. It was a ritual. 3 days of silence, trout fishing, and sleeping in his old camper van. He drove back on a Sunday afternoon. As he turned onto his street, Elm Street, he felt a physical jolt. The light was wrong. Usually, as he approached his driveway, the sun would be blocked by the massive canopy of the General. Today, the sun was blinding. It hit his windshield with a harsh, unfiltered glare. Arthur pulled into the driveway. His hands were shaking on the steering wheel. He walked through the side gate. He dropped his tackle box. The sound echoed in the silence. The backyard, usually a cool, shady oasis, was a barren wasteland. The hydrangeas, Eleanor's hydrangeas, were crushed into the mud, flattened by heavy machinery tracks. And in the corner, the General was gone. All that remained was a raw, jagged stump, 4 feet wide, bleeding sap. The ground was covered in a thick layer of sawdust that smelled of fresh, murdered wood. The massive logs, thousands of pounds of premium lumber, were gone. Stolen. Arthur felt a pain in his chest so sharp He thought he was having a heart attack. He sat down on the garden bench, gasping for air. He looked at the stump. It looked like an amputation. "Hey, you're back!" Arthur turned his head. Brad Sterling was standing on his deck next door, holding a protein shake. "Looks way better, right?" Brad yelled. "Open concept. Now you get sunlight, and my pool gets sunlight. Win-win." Arthur stood up. He walked to the fence. He moved with the slow, terrifying deliberation of a predator. "You crossed my property line," Arthur said. His voice was a whisper, but it carried across the yard like a gunshot. "You brought heavy machinery onto my land. You cut down a 150-year-old tree without my permission." "Relax," Brad rolled his eyes. "My guys hopped the fence. Took them 2 hours. I saved you like $3,000 in removal fees. Stop being a drama queen. If you want, I'll throw you $500 for the mess." "$500, Arthur repeated. "Yeah, take it or leave it. Don't make this a thing, Arthur. I have lawyers on retainer who eat guys like you for breakfast." Arthur stared at Brad. He memorized his face. He memorized the arrogant smirk. "I don't want your money, Mr. Sterling," Arthur said. "I want justice." He turned and walked inside. He didn't scream. He went to his study, opened his safe, and took out his property deed and the survey maps from 1978. Then he picked up the phone. The next morning, a van marked Casca Forestry and Consulting pulled up. Out stepped Dr. Elena Ross. She wasn't just a gardener, she was a forensic arborist. She testified in court cases involving wildfires and illegal logging. She looked at the stump and covered her mouth. Oh my God. She spent 4 hours at the crime scene. She measured the diameter. She took samples of the sawdust. She took photos of the tire tracks that destroyed the garden. She used a drone to map the canopy void. "Arthur," Elena said, sitting at his kitchen table later, "do you know what black walnut is?" "It's a shade tree," Arthur said. "No," Elena corrected. "It is one of the most valuable hardwoods in North America. Veneer quality, furniture grade, a trunk this wide, this straight. It's basically gold growing out of the ground." She opened her laptop. "We use the trunk formula method for valuation. We calculate the size, the species, the condition, and the location. Base value, $58,000. Ecosystem services, carbon capture, stormwater retention over 50 years, $12,000. Property value depreciation, loss of privacy, shade, $15,000. She looked up. "The replacement value alone is roughly $85,000. Arthur nodded. "And the timber he stole?" "I checked the local sawmills," Elena said, her eyes narrowing. "A guy matching Brad's description sold 3 massive black walnut logs to a mill in Vancouver yesterday. He got $12,000 cash for them." Arthur's lawyer, Silas Goldman, sat forward. Silas was a shark in a cheap suit. He loved tree law. "Here's the kicker, Arthur," Silas grinned. "Oregon Statute 105.810. Timber trespass. If the act is willful and malicious, which we can prove because he sold the wood, the court awards treble damages." "Treble?" "Triple," Silas said. "We aren't suing for $85,000. We are suing for $255,000, plus legal fees, plus emotional distress." Arthur signed the retainer agreement. "Burn him," he said. Brad Sterling was getting ready to list the glass house. He had priced it at $2.8 million. He had taken a hard money loan to build it. These loans are dangerous. High interest, 12%, short term. He owed the bank $20,000 a month in interest. He needed to sell fast. 2 days before the open house, Brad received a letter. He laughed when he saw it. "A lawsuit? From Grandpa?" He tossed it to his assistant. "Send it to legal. Tell them to delay it. I'll settle for $5,000 after I sell the house." But Brad made a fatal mistake. He didn't understand real estate law. Because the lawsuit involved the land, the tree was part of the land, Arthur's lawyer filed a Lis Pendens, suit pending, with the county clerk. A Lis Pendens is a red flag on the property title. It screams to the world, this property is under litigation. The open house, Saturday morning. A wealthy couple in a Bentley pulled up. They loved the house. They loved the pool. They were ready to make an offer. Then the husband's phone rang. It was his real estate agent. Stop, the agent said. Walk away. I just pulled the title report. There's a Lis Pendens on the property for $300,000 damages. The title isn't clean. No bank will finance this. The couple got in their Bentley and left. By Monday, every buyer had vanished. Brad was stuck with a $2.8 million house he couldn't sell and a loan that was eating him alive. Brad was furious. He stormed into his lawyer's office. We have to get this lien off. He's blackmailing me. His lawyer, a tired man named Vinny, rubbed his temples. Brad, did you cut the tree? Yes, but it was just a tree. We have to go to deposition. You have to testify under oath. The deposition. A sterile conference room. Arthur sat quietly. Silas Goldman sat next to him. Brad sat opposite, looking annoyed. Silas, Mr. Sterling, did you profit from the removal of the tree? Brad, no, I told you it was just debris. I paid guys to haul it away. Silas smiled. It was a terrifying smile. He slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a color printout of an Instagram post. User, @BradBuildsEmpire. Image, Brad standing next to massive walnut logs on a truck, flexing his biceps. Caption, side hustle, chopped down the neighbor's ugly weed and turned it into $12,000 cash at the mill. Paying for the pool tiles, #grindset, #free money. The room went silent. Brad's lawyer closed his folder. He looked at Brad with disgust. You lied under oath, Vinny whispered, and you admitted to theft and malicious intent on social media. Silas leaned back. That post just proved willful and malicious intent. We are now definitely getting triple damages and maybe criminal theft charges. Would you like to settle, or should I call the district attorney? Brad looked like he was going to vomit. Brad was bleeding. He had missed 2 payments to the hard money lender. The bank was threatening foreclosure. If they foreclosed, he would lose everything: the house, his equity, his reputation. He had no choice. He called a meeting. Arthur walked in. He didn't look triumphant. He looked sad. What do you want? Brad asked, his voice breaking. I don't have $300,000 cash. All my money is in the house. I don't want to ruin you, Arthur said, but you need to learn that you cannot buy your way out of decency. Arthur slid a paper across the table. The settlement offer. Financial damages. Brad agrees to pay $150,000 immediately upon the sale of the house. The Lis Pendens would be lifted only to allow the sale, with the money going directly from escrow to Arthur. Restoration. Brad must pay a landscaping crew to remove the stump and repair the soil damage. The privacy wall. Before the house is sold, Brad must install a row of 15-foot mature arbor vitae trees along the fence line. The apology. Brad must handwrite an apology letter to Arthur. If you agree, Arthur said, I lift the lien today. You can sell the house next week. Brad signed. He was shaking. The $150,000 cut wiped out his entire profit from the flip. He had worked for 8 months for $0. Actually, after legal fees, he lost money. 6 months later. The modern house next door sold to a nice young couple from Seattle. They were quiet. Arthur stood in his backyard. The stump was gone, ground down to the earth. In its place, Arthur had planted a new tree, a white oak. It was only 6 feet tall now. It's small, Arthur whispered, but it has time. Along the fence stood the row of 15-foot trees Brad had paid for. They blocked the view of the pool completely. Arthur had his privacy back. Arthur went inside and checked his mail. A check for $110,000, his share after legal fees. He sat at his desk. He wrote a check for $110,000 to the Eleanor Vance Community Garden Fund. He didn't keep a dime. He walked back outside, sat in his chair, and looked at the little oak tree swaying in the wind. He imagined Eleanor sitting next to him. "We got him, El," Arthur smiled. "We got him."